Spokane Storytime. Hey, was Spokane and this entire valley underneath water at one point? Let's find out. So about 15,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, there was an ice sheet that reached down from Canada all the way to the area that we now know as Lake Pend Oreille. And just east of there, near Clark Fork in the Cabinet Gorge, there was a huge ice dam that built up that was a few thousand feet tall. And as those ice sheets receded, it started to form this massive lake, bigger than one of the Great Lakes, that we now know as Lake Missoula. And so when that ice dam gave way, it sent a massive wall of rushing water straight towards Spokane and the Rathdrum Prairie. It carved out the depth of Lake Pend Oreille. It sent boulders tumbling all over central Washington. It eventually drained out through the Columbia River Gorge. And these floods didn't just happen once. They happened dozens, if not hundreds of times over thousands of years. These catastrophic floods shaped the inland Northwest. The term coulee, for example, like Grand Coulee Dam, is a term that we now use to describe when glacial flooding rapidly carved out these valleys, compared to how a valley would normally form over time with erosion and a river. And so when the French fur trappers showed up in the 1700s and they saw these deep valleys with these jagged cliffs, they were like, what happened to all the water? It must have been something flowing here. So they gave it the name couler, which in French means to flow. And then you have Dry Falls, which at one point was the largest waterfall in the world at 3.5 miles wide and nearly 400 feet tall. To put that in perspective, that's twice the height of Niagara Falls and 5 times as wide. And the torrents from the floods were so intense, it carved out and left behind some unique rock formations up here in central Washington, such as land bridges, potholes, caves. You have lakes, and of course, waterfalls. And those floods didn't just create a bunch of new, unique rock formations. When those waters ripped through the region like a DeLorean, it exposed a bunch of the old ancient geology. When it ripped away all the topsoil, it exposed places like the channeled scablands or the Drumheller channels, which is a perfect example of columnar or columnar basalt. These were lava flows from about 10 million years ago when the lava cooled down slowly and fractured, creating those perfect hexagonal forms. And that's why it's sometimes called fractal basalt. And then out here at Riverside State Park, we have what's called pillow basalt, which formed about 17 million years ago when lava erupted up through water, creating a glassy rind. And as the lava continued to push up, it created these bulbous formations, very similar to how we blow glass. And some great examples would be the Deep Creek Interpretive Trail here. They've added some signage that talks all about the Ice Age floods, as well as over by the Swinging Bridge, of course, the iconic bowl and pitcher. And the flooding was so intense, it dislodged some of these house-sized boulders and sent them tumbling towards central Washington. So if you've ever been like me and driving along Highway 2 and ask yourself, how did that boulder get into the middle of that wheat field? Well, that's what they call a glacial erratic. That's because scientists didn't know how it got there. So next time you're on a road trip with your friends, you can look over to them and say, hey, did you know that's called a glacial erratic? Now you know.